All right, free radicals, welcome back. My name is Dave, and I am the Radical Independent. And of course, this will not be my last video, so I want to let folks know, even though I'm going to be talking about something that has a bit of closure to it to some degree, at least I'm speculating. Tulsi Gabbard could be calling it a campaign today. She could be suspending her campaign for the presidency. I think she's had enough. I think she's had enough of the slander and the mistreatment and the blackout, and she knows the overarching reason that she would stop. Well, there'd be a couple. There'd probably be financial considerations. I'm sure she's still getting campaign donations, but I'm sure those donations have certainly leveled off and started to come down. The other issue is I think Tulsi Gabbard is tired. I think she needs to get off the campaign trail. She's tried to spread this message, and you're basically running uphill for your entire campaign, which is much different than having the wind at your back if you're Michael Bloomberg or Joe Biden or even Bernie Sanders to some degree. And it's just time. We've watched her get her points across. Recently, UBI has become a thing, and Tulsi Gabbard was the first on the floor of the House of Representatives offering up this idea, something that Andrew Yang made, the cornerstone of his campaign. So I think it's remarkable the way Tulsi Gabbard took that baton and said, okay, I'm going to do this. If Andrew isn't here, I'm going to tell his supporters if they want to come on over. I will certainly carry the torch. And she did. She did. And that is an amazing accomplishment because from what I can gather, next month, Americans are going to be receiving a UBI. And you can thank Tulsi Gabbard and others. Obviously, Donald Trump gets credit, whether you like Trump or not. And we're having this big semantics war about should Trump be calling the virus the China virus and yada, yada, yada over on Twitter. I say you got to pick your battles. Trump is a buffoon. Trump says things that he shouldn't say. He's been doing it, though, since before he got elected, and there's a formula to this. By the way, if anybody is going to come at you with, well, this is not good for our relationship with China, I think Trump has done a ton of negotiating with China and has been in a bit of a trade war, been using the tariffs and then back and forth. So the way I look at it is Trump seems to be irritated that China didn't give us more of a heads up about how severe this was and the containment and so forth. And I think that's where his anger comes from. Is it a good diplomatic move? Probably not. Probably not. I'm not going to defend it. But to call everything xenophobic and racist, like out of the box, every single freaking time, we're going to get money. Americans are going to need this money. They say the unemployment rate's going to be like 20%. So you guys are all debating semantics and word salad and Trump being Trump, which this is what he does. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to watch. But you also had, at the press conference, I watched it, and I typically don't watch Trump press conferences, but you had 3 media people ask the same question. Do you think this is racist? Do you think this is good for Asian Americans? It'll be really good when Asian Americans get a $2,000 check in the mail. All right? Do I like his rhetoric? No, I don't. But his rhetoric is not the focus. It shouldn't be the focus. It should be he's getting stuff done, like criminal justice reform. Progressives' heads are exploding because, on one hand, they knee-jerk react to everything that Trump says about other countries. By the way, again, our relationship with China, if you really want to boil it down, the reason we have a manufacturing crisis in this country is because China pays their people no wages. All right, slave wages. So we already know this, they can make stuff for pennies. And then they send it to us. They mark it up a little bit. And when it gets here, go to, like, Dollar Tree wouldn't be in business right now. They wouldn't be in business if it weren't for China and how they treat their people. You wouldn't be able to get products that cheap. All right, and it goes across the spectrum, and everybody knows this stuff. But it's gutted our workforce. It's gutted our manufacturing because we don't make anything here. And so I know I went off on a tangent about the China thing, and I wanted to focus on Tulsi Gabbard, but Tulsi Gabbard is kind of responsible for getting the idea of UBI out there. And I know she's not going to get any credit for it, but there's an old adage, it doesn't matter who gets the credit if it's a really good idea. And you have to be humble enough, and she's that person. She is that person to just sit back and go, yep, I'm the one that sponsored this bill. And you can go around, whether it's the Off Fossil Fuels Act, the paper ballots initiative, the election security bill. And lately we have needed all of the things that she has suggested. We've needed those things urgently. So if this is Tulsi suspending her campaign, which it might be, and again, I don't blame her. I don't blame her. She's worked as hard as any presidential candidate I've ever seen. The idea of what's next, if this is the end for Tulsi supporters, let me just give you a little advice. All right, if you're going to write in Tulsi Gabbard's name in the general election, no one's going to count that. We're not even sure if they're going to count an actual ballot where you fill in the oval and it records it. We're not even sure if they're going to do that correctly. Writing in is really, as much as if you want to make a statement, you want to feel good about it, okay, if there's a place to write someone in, I hear that they just chuck those ballots because they know there's not going to be enough of a write-in vote. Very rarely. There have been circumstances, I think up in Alaska, there was a write-in candidate that either won or came really close. But, that's up to you what you want to do. My guess is there needs to be some kind of movement for a People's Party or the Green Party or Libertarians. You can pick your flavor, okay? But the two-party system right now, I think, is very corrupt. But the wild card in all of this is Donald Trump. Trump just went to the left of Joe Biden, way to the left of Biden. He went to the left of Bernie Sanders, or he went to where Bernie is. Donald Trump just did that. And you'll say, well, it's a crisis. But still, to get the government, to get Republicans in a huge majority to vote for this is unprecedented. And I'm starting to think that, the way Republicans think about Democrats, they think they're, all of these different things, socialists. It's more that the Democrats seem dug in on things that don't really matter to people. It has, and if they would focus on issues. Now, I'm not calling out the progressives necessarily, because a lot of progressives have great ideas, and they put them out there. And if they put those ideas out without this xenophobia, racism, because, I wake up tomorrow and I see an Asian American. Yes, you're the reason we have this. What kind of person is that? That person needs to be in an institution, put away, maybe behind bars, but at least under lock and key somewhere. That's not a person that should be in society to make that connection. Because Trump says the virus comes, you're wasting time. And I'm not saying you should praise Trump unconditionally. Oh my gosh, no. This is a guy who launched a missile attack on Syria. And again, we can examine why that happened. But again, the media, the propaganda, his daughter, his son-in-law, that's Trump at his very worst, when he's just taking the word of somebody else and saying, okay. And that's why it's good that John Bolton is no longer working for President Trump. All right, again, you can do whatever you want to do after Tulsi decides to quit. If this truly is the end, like I say, it might not be. She might be going back to refortify. With Tulsi Gabbard, you don't know. It could be either or. But I have no regrets, and I'll continue to support her and talk about her and her message. I know if she's not campaigning anymore, it's going to be difficult to say she's trying to win the presidency. I think, quite honestly, you're in a corrupt party. Okay, you ran as a Democrat. Actually, Tulsi Gabbard might do better running as a Republican. I don't know. She could bring these ideas, because you know what? The Republicans just voted for UBI. It's a crazy world. You see, the Republican Party, I will say this, I think the Republican Party, when they're in power, they get things done for the people who they represent way more so than what the Democrats do. The Democrats focus on stuff, again, like how you're thinking about a country or how you're thinking about an individual. And I don't think you can police thought. I think that's a bad idea. I think what you need to do, help people better their lives. Protect people from enemies, both foreign and domestic. And this virus right now is domestic, so we need to be at war with this virus. And the way you inoculate people, at least until there's an actual vaccine, is to give them the tools to fight the virus. And honestly, resources, access to healthcare and resources, financial resources. If your job says there's no job anymore until further notice, and then they lay you off, I heard unemployment computer servers were crashing yesterday. Estimates say we could be up around 20% unemployment. That would be Great Depression level unemployment. So, again, Tulsi Gabbard accomplished a lot. We need to give credit where credit is due, even if that means it's Donald Trump. And look, if your political system is so cloistered and not really relevant to the conversation, but yet you live in that bubble and you think that that little group of folks is going to change the world, you need to think bigger. You need to build coalitions, left populism, right populism, independents, moderates, conservatives, libertarians, and Greens. There's a world for all of us. We need to decide which battles we pick. If you're just going to pick the battle about how Donald Trump speaks, that's not the central battle that we need to fight right now. We need to fight this virus and win. So in any event, hats off to Tulsi Gabbard. My only regret during this campaign is that nobody from the Gabbard campaign ever reached out to me in a meaningful way. And I would have loved to just have had a little phone conversation with Tulsi Gabbard. I know a lot of the independent media types were able to talk to her one-on-one. They were able to introduce her at campaign events. I don't have the resources to leave my family and to, fly somewhere. And I think the closest she came to me was Miami, and that's 2.5 hours away. And again, when you're raising, a 6-year-old, it's rough. So, I had to make choices, and I couldn't be all in the way a lot of these folks are. And I envy that, and I'm grateful for it too, because it lets me kind of see in through that lens to see what's happening. So, but it would have been cool just to say, hey, Tulsi, love you, love your campaign, love what you're doing, I got your back. So that would have been the conversation. But you can watch me say it here. So if Tulsi, you're out there, aloha, thanks for your campaign. I actually hope it's not the end, because I want to keep talking about you, because it irritates so many people. You can watch my last video about the dude from the Honolulu Civil Beat. That is the actual name of the newspaper, the Civil Beat. It's more like the Propaganda Beat. All right. Aloha. Don't forget, if you want to support me in this channel, it's davidjspurria@gmx.com. Though that email is for PayPal donations, yes, I can read emails there too, but I would prefer, if you're going to use that, I would prefer donations. There are a lot of folks that email me stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, I just don't have time for it all. But I appreciate the thoughts, and I will continue to be the radical independent. So stay tuned.